Hi, this is Eva for Once Upon a Timeline. Welcome, everybody. Let's see, let me make sure I have it. I actually didn't even check. I think my settings are good. All right. I had it set up for making some other video, and I wasn't sure if I changed it. Okay, so let's see who's here. Michael Fontaine, Roger Prescott, JoJo's, Heart's Truth, Adam Ant, Mark, Bill White, Cupie's in, JoJo, Shari D's in, Mark. That's everybody. And I even got my notification up early today. Daggy Happy Shifting. Welcome. Moonlit Illusion. Is anyone here a fan of the Carpenters? I just discovered a song by them that's new, calling occupants of interplanetary craft. Anyone heard of it? Yeah, unfortunately I didn't know their songs that well, so I can't help. Interesting title though. It's not like you're going to forget that. Yeah, that kind of reminds me, anybody hearing that meme going around, like first the pandemic, then the riots, aliens are landing next or something. It's just interesting to hear that meme. Just wondering if there won't be some weird aliens thing. I don't think they'll actually land. Usually the memes are more extreme than the actual reality, but kind of interesting. I've been watching the memes a lot more because it seems like there's so much predictive programming. I mean, some of it shows up later and I never saw it, the predictions. So those are kind of retroactively inserted in the timeline or something. But there's also ones I do see them in advance, like all the storylines of pandemics the last few years, that kind of thing. All right, so nobody remembers that song, looks like. Shari thought she knew all the songs, but she doesn't remember that one. Strange because it's sci-fi theme in their song, and I couldn't miss this. Dark Wolf's Den is in. Welcome. Keeping you busy over there at IMEC, I bet. Does anybody know what time it is? It's my favorite time of the week, Once Upon a Timeline. Oh, thank you. I thought you were serious for a second. Okay, so nothing really exciting in world news, so I'm not really going to cover anything specific. I did want to cover a little bit. I've been looking at this for like a couple years already, but it's weird stuff with the ISS footage that they say is real. So, of course, the flat earthers love this because it's evidence that if the ISS space stuff is fake, then, you know, it's evidence that the Earth could be flat. I don't know what it's evidence of other than that the ISS stuff could be fake. It looks super fake to me. And there's a bunch of video that, like, these are supposed to be live feeds from the ISS. So I'm just going to run some of this. This is one that I stumbled on a couple years ago, and then now that both Google and YouTube search engines are just horrible, I actually struggled to find this one again, and it's in a million videos because it's like the most popular ISS is fake baloney evidence ever, and I only could find it with this German guy. I can only guess that because it's in German, it didn't get squeezed out of the search engine, but so I'm just muting it because I think if I remember right, he just yaps on in German. But so in case you haven't ever seen this stuff, okay, so here's one where he suddenly appears. So all these are supposed to be live from the ISS, but some people think that this is all just green screen, and indeed the people look very suspiciously green screeny, because when you look at people on a green screen, a lot of times they just don't blend into the environment quite right because their actual image is cut out and pasted in, and the cutout is not, 100% perfect, so it just looks different. Also, what happens a lot of times is their height and the perspective will be a little off, and maybe they'll look too large or too small compared to the surrounding stuff. Now, ISS has been doing this for quite some time, so they've got the basics down. But what can happen if you do this time after time is that there could be somebody pushes the wrong button, or one of the computers fails or whatever. So the thing is, I don't understand is if ISS is really faking this, then why wouldn't they just tape it in advance? I can't imagine that they do the green screen and do it all live. So I guess some of these are supposed to be live interviews from the ground, though. So then theoretically they couldn't tape them. So anyway, this is one where this person sort of materializes suddenly. And this is, okay, so that one was really weird. I'm going to just replay it. So this guy just suddenly shows up. All right, now this one is weird too, because this thing here is going to magically appear. Okay, so there, see how it just like, it beams in like it's like a freaking, so now they're showing you example of what green screen can do here. But there were other people who had this that had better clips, but basically this thing wasn't there and then it sort of shows up. I don't really get why it shows up like it's beaming in, but it's supposed to, all those stuff she's handling is supposed to be actually in the ISS, in the International Space Station. It's supposed to be in there, so it wouldn't like, you can't beam in. This thing shouldn't be able to beam in. This is it beaming in supposedly on the live screen there. So then she grabs it. So this is showing you how it looks like to her. This side over here, I believe, anyway, the cartoony side is what they would see if they were doing green screen. And then this is what would be actually happening, but then they would take an image and put it in there for the ball so you would see it. So augmented reality, basically. And they have little contact lenses that they actually can put in your eye so that you are able to actually see the ball and stuff. Excuse me. When you're manipulating them. But what could happen is there's two separate feeds. One goes to your eye, what everybody's supposed to be seeing, and another feed goes out to everybody. So if one of those feeds fails, you could be seeing a ball and manipulating it through your contacts, but the people viewing may not see it. There are instances where you can see them going like this, and there's nothing in their hand. I mean, like, what are they? The ISS people are like schizophrenic or something. It's weird. I think this is the one here, and it's coming up. Dun, dun, dun. See there, he's like, this guy hands him this, and there's nothing there, though. They're not holding anything. What is he taking in his hand and moving over there? He probably sees something. Then some of these instances are just stuff that looks like see-through. Actually, I don't remember what this one is. Oh, is this another one where he thinks he's holding something? It's not showing up to the rest of us. Oh, this is one where, like, the items disappear weirdly and stuff. There's a bunch of weird ones. There's actually one somewhere where a guy in the background actually cruises across, and you can actually see a wire that he's hanging on. So, let's see. There's a couple where they show, like, the wire snags on the shirts and stuff. Ideally, they would get those out. So basically all this, so the theory is that these guys are held on with one of these kind of harnesses. So this is the kind of thing you see in the Matrix and stuff. So you can see that their activities are very doable if they're on a harness. All right, so this is them doing, they love to do these little spins. But then he fell. That one was weird because he's supposed to be spinning, but then all of a sudden he goes bloop. All right, so there's another example of green screen in action. So they're just kind of showing. Well, people watch all that and you think that they're in outer space, but that hair one is another weird one because if you look at if they have this airplane that like does a free fall drop, so it flies up and then it drops, and people inside can get a taste of weightlessness. And if you look at that one, you can see how the hair flows around in kind of a very natural, it looks more like an underwater thing. But the ones, the women on the ISS, their hair always looks like it's stuck on hairspray or something. It's weird. It doesn't look like the regular free fall ones. So another reason that this all freaks me out is just, I was about 6 years ago or something, suddenly all of this showed up. It all looks weird. I was, even before I knew the ME, I was like, I kept thinking it looks weird, but then I'm like, well, it never actually occurred to me then that would be all fake, because where I come from originally, stuff didn't look fake, it looked real, and it didn't scream out fakiness. So, no, I'm not going to say that I think that the Earth is flat. I'm kind of a simulation dreamscape type person anyway, but this is the kind of stuff that feeds the flat Earth frenzy, shall we say. Let's see what you guys are up to. So I have this one saved. It's NASA ISS fake Aufnahmen in it's all in German. I hope you can see it good enough to kind of, if you wanted to, from Bolek TV channel, Bolek TV channel. And this is an old one from January 3, 2019. But this one's been floating around for some time. So it's just interesting. I could not find this I was looking and looking. I still got to dig up the one where he goes by on a wire. That one's a trip. Why would they even let long hair go to space, lose hairs in space, all electronics? Yeah, well, I've said before it used to be that if any water escaped, it would get in the electronics and destroy it, and they would have to be really careful not to spill. But now they dump water out and watch the drops fly around and all this stuff, so it's like, oh, what happened to the electronics and stuff? But all those old videos I used to watch are gone. I don't know about flat Earth frenzy, but it sure makes me question a lot of things we are seeing recently. Yes, exactly. You don't have to decide the Earth is flat to watch their shows and find a lot of interesting stuff in it. There's a lot of anomalies because they're watching. Don't worry, all of you will be a flat earther soon. This world is so weird. It could be. I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, everything is so whack-doodle here that I think the evidence for the old world was strong, that it was round, and all the video of spacewalks and stuff was just, it looked real. All that video is gone now, and now there's just this fakey looking video. So, I mean, if it's a sim dream, then it can be any shape that gets programmed in. So maybe that's what's getting programmed in now, is the flat. I've definitely seen that things are different, like as far as quite some time ago, I did notice that I could see more mountains behind the nearest mountains. Like when I drive down the freeway, there's these mountains in front of me. It used to be you could see one range of mountains, and then behind that was another range of mountains. But then I saw, one day I'm driving home, and I'm like, there's like a third and maybe a fourth mountain back there. I never saw that before, 20 years living here. So I don't know, did the ground get flat? Now I can see the more mountains? Oh, it could be. At the time, I had assumed that those other mountains got bigger. Or something, because there is a lot of talk about the Sierras being more visible from Los Angeles. So, I thought it had something to do with that, but. There's a popular video of George Bush Sr. visiting NASA, and one of the monitors features an actual green screen being shot. Yeah, I have seen that one. So, basically, they're just shooting video of people walking around, but way up in the top, you can see a monitor that has green screen in the green screen grid lines. So why do they have a green screen up on their monitor? There wouldn't be any reason for that I can think of. I can't think of any legitimate reason for they have green screen background up there. There's a clip with the astronaut just going through the wall of the ISS. I have not seen that one. Now, I've seen one where he goes around the corner and he kind of fades out instead of disappearing around the corner. Like he's half around the corner and then the hand just kind of fades away. So there's definitely more. I do want to find that one with that wire harness that's visible. You actually see him go by and you can see the harness on him, like like a couple inches of tab basically. And it's right at the pivot point, so it's right where he'd be hanging. So that was really, really suspicious. But, you know, if they really want to hide this so bad, I mean, like, why are all these videos still up? This guy, this German guy, he could have, they could have easily, I'm sure they could have bots to hunt down this video and get rid of it. And they never have. And even now, YouTube's taking everything in its uncle down for stupider things than that, and they have not gone after this. So I can only guess, you know, it's still there for those with eyes to see. Basically, they have to truth drop or something. Just reading along over here as I'm yapping. Did you hear that Yoda, C-3PO, etc. make an appearance in the never-ending story? No. Oh, Dark Wolf's Den's putting his iMech world up, iMech.world. So yeah, we got the iMech conference coming up pretty soon now. I've done a 45-minute video for it. I actually shot like 110 minutes of video, which was way longer than they really wanted. So I cut it down almost half. So I'll eventually run the whole video, but I'm going to let iMech run like the 45-minute video. I just talk about, you know, some of that stuff you've probably heard, unless you've seen every one of my shows, though, then you probably haven't heard it all. There's just, I just realized there's so much material, I didn't even know where to start. We can talk another 3 hours. Easily. Striped bananas. Haven't seen striped bananas. All right, so I'm going to just check this C-3PO thing first. C-3PO. C-3PO. Never ending story. 10 fun facts. All right, so I was looking at it, and then it was gone. Where did it all go? During the first tower scene, if you look closely, you will see characters such as Yoda, Mickey Mouse, Chewbacca, C-3PO. That's interesting, and I've never heard that, but, you know, I can't say that I would for sure notice that. For those who were really avid fans of the show, though, that should be something that they heard of. All right, striped bananas. Let's do that one. I mean, nothing really surprises me. I think every show, every movie has changes now. I still can't get used to those bananas growing up like that. Just so weird. It always looks like it's upside down. Oh, funny. Striped. You know, we looked for weird bananas before, but I didn't find these. Striped bananas. Information and facts. Would they taste like peppermint or something? That's the kind of joke that this reality likes. Variegated. Oh, it's a variegated banana. Aiai is the name of it in Hawaii. Aiai. I'm pretty sure I said that right. Said to have been consumed by the Hawaiian royalty. Is one of the most rare and beautiful bananas. Rare and rare. It's rare, so that means it just showed up in the timeline probably. That seems to be the pattern here. Aiai. Yeah, I said it right because they've got another pronunciation here. That's an easier to understand letters, and it is aiai. you guys find out it has any weird tastes or anything. It's that one. Chicken, eggs, banana. Chicken, eggs, banana. Quamoa. Just sometimes when these new things show up, you'll find out all this weird stuff about them beyond just that they're striped. New blue oyster cult for me this week. What, like a new songs or something? There's definitely new Michael Jackson videos for me. I've covered that before though. Basically, all the last couple ones he did before he died weren't there for me. And there, well, you know, I hate to admit it, but there was a time when I really liked all his music. I still like the music, but you know, he wasn't as weird in the old timeline. I mean, he was kind of weird, but he wasn't like creepy. I hate it when they use their hair to show they are in zero gravity. Awakened Saint did a very good clip on that. I'm just going to write that down because lately I've just been in one of them conspiracy theory modes. Awaken. Wait, I just read that. Awakened Saint. Channel. All right, there we go. I really do think that the evidence that space travel was legit was considerable in the old timeline. I looked into the conspiracy theories at that time online, not just, you know, whatever they chose to put on TV. And there wasn't that much evidence. Some of it was a little interesting, but it was, you know, it was not clear cut. But now there's stuff that just beats you in the head. Like, come on. People will make insane excuses if they see it. You know, I've tried, and it's just like one person, he just was like, didn't want to talk about it. Like, I go, didn't you see that? What is that? And he just like, and it's like he didn't even hear me, or his brain went, I'm like, just like, because how are you going to make an excuse for something like that? You know, that's like a toy magically appears, like by magic, you know, obvious screen. They can't even come up with an excuse. It's just like, don't talk to me anymore. There are fuzzy bananas whose skins are bubblegum pink, green and white striped bananas with pulp the color of orange sherbet. Bananas, that is, when cooked, taste like strawberries. Those sound good. I want some of those. I want the strawberry flavored bananas with the stripes. It's like, it really is like fantasy land. Daylight come. Oh, I remember that song, Daylight come and I want to go home. Awakened Saint is now Airborne Saint, and I give you the link to his video above and again here. All right, I'll click on it. Clickies. Something went wrong. No go. Literally. Now I gotta get that back. Back. Airborne Saint. What, did he lose his channel? They're like, you know, in the beginning of the year when they said that they could take down videos even if you follow the official rules, some people got scared and like closed their channel and then started a new one. And I actually never really saw why, because I'm like, nah, if they close down my channel, then I'll start a new one, but I'm not going to close it down early. But maybe they had a lot of strikes and they were like just on the edge or something. Malfunction does not compute. Yeah, that's what happens to some of these people. They just, yeah, it literally is like they just can't process it. They can't come up with an excuse, and it's just like, yeah. And I don't understand that because I don't think I've ever done that. I mean, there's definitely been times when it was too much and I just stopped looking into stuff like, I've already swallowed this. I'm not looking into that. But if there was evidence right in front of me, like if somebody went, look, this is supposed to be the ISS feed, and I saw that, I would not. I'd be like, I gotta check into this. That would be me. It would start the frenzy of Googling. I want ice cream that tastes like bananas. Almost ordered the flavor today to make some homemade. Buffering again. Ugh, there, I'm always buffering. Maybe it's just you, I'm hoping. Not that, I mean, that does sound kind of mean, but. Okay, so what got me started on all that was, I don't know if you guys know this channel, UAP. I forgot why they call him UAP, but he's a Mandela Effect channel, technically, but he did a lot more Mandelas, and now he's a very interesting guy, and one reason I like this guy is because he's really sharp. I mean, he just sees stuff. I mean, he sees a lot more stuff than I do, which I really like. And he's just kind of he's just this quiet dude. He just talks like, he's got this real dry sense of humor, so he's not like swearing and cursing. But on this particular video, I mean, he's not like, comedy is not his main thing, but on this video, he's hilarious. And it's called American Soiled Launch, UAP, and his channel is UAP. And this is a recent one, let's see, premiered May 31, 2020. This one has just made me laugh. So he's a total flat earther. Like I said, I'm not really a flat earther. I'm a, I don't know what the heck earther, but he covers this launch that happened recently to the ISS, and he just spots all this stuff. He just rips it a new one, basically, like, and that doesn't make sense, and that doesn't make sense, and I was just rolling. And one of the things that he showed was this is the ISS. So when I saw that, I'm like, what? Scooby, Shaggy? Because every time I look at the ISS, it looks different. So this is the ISS now, and best I can tell, it was built like that, for a really long time. Like, it was always intended to be built like this. Because, I'm tempted to say, when I see it way bigger and more sophisticated than last time, that they've been adding on to it. But no, it's best I can tell, because I was looking like, did they have it like this way for years and this way for years? But no, as best I can tell, this was the original plan, and they got it put together reasonably fast, and this is just how it looks. But it's just way more stuff in here than I remember. But one thing that he mentioned, this is supposed to be the feed when they were flying up to the ISS, is that how come these solar panels are all pointed at all different places? If the sun is from one spot, then shouldn't they be all oriented towards the sun? Because these are supposed to be solar panels that move to point at the sun. So he was laughing about these two, like, he's like, oh, maybe it's a model and they tweaked it when they were moving it. And you will see fairly often that these panels don't make a lot of sense. But what was interesting about this one that made me laugh so hard, because I have this problem at work, is if you are photographing something shiny and above you are those long ultraviolet light things like they have at the grocery store, those little stinkers will totally, whatever shiny that you're trying to photograph, those lights will reflect in there, and it'll make it look like there's white lines in your product. And in my case, I'm photographing products, and so it's like when I photograph like shiny agates, and then they look like they have these white lines. Well, these white lines are just the overhead lighting, but you can't really take a photograph of something without lighting. And even if you have it off to the sides, if you don't get your camera angle just right, it'll still get in there. So in this one, he's like, oh, I can see the overhead lights. So what are these weird shadows and lights? They look just like fluorescent lights. I'm going to make it big so you can see it better. But go over and watch this thing. So like right in here, doesn't that just look like the reflections of overhead lighting? I mean, what are these things? It's just what would cause these bar patterns here? So yeah, weird. I was just laughing because that's exactly the crap I get in my photos from my overhead lights. Big pain in the butt. I've had to redo so many photos, or I just have to send them to customers and go, and those lines in there are not really in there, or something. Such a pain. All right, so anyway, he's just, that was one, and there was another one, darn. I think it was at 110. No. 624. It might have been 624. He covers this one. This one's weird because it really looks like it's green screen again. Just after this guy. I'll tell you, with this COVID thing, I've been seeing a lot of what looks like green screen on newscasters. And just look, if they look a little funny, like they don't quite fit in there. I don't know if their house is a mess or it just doesn't look good enough, so they go on green screen, and then behind them you see images of these bookshelves or whatever. And it just, the perspective and everything is off. Well, this is another example of it. Not this guy, but the next guy. These guys. They don't look like they're really there. But they're supposed to, see, like their size compared to these chairs and stuff. The lighting, it's all blurry here. I don't think these guys are, but they're supposed to be interviewing from inside this room. They're supposed to be in here on this launch day. So, I mean, why even fake that? You know, it's just, there's so much like that. Another thing on this video is that every time they show a shot of the rocket, and it's supposed to be just minutes apart, the sky is different. Like, it's kind of in between over here. All right, and then this one, it's pretty clear. These are all supposed to be real time. Over here, it's really clear. I mean, there's 5 minutes difference between there. Now, if they shot this stuff all at different times, then it would make sense that the clouds are different every time. But it doesn't make sense. And then look at this one where that's not, you know, like that looks nothing like the other photos. That's supposed to be a live shot at the time, you know, so, you know, what the heck? There's another one where it shows, see if I can find that one. After they launch, there's a couple where they show, there's 2 screens and they're supposed to be simultaneously happening. And one of them shows the guys in the shuttle, and there's this really bright light. I guess it's supposed to be the sun, like blasting into the wind, into this, like lighting them up from the sun through some kind of window in front of them. But then the other scene that's supposed to be happening at the exact same time, there's no bright light anywhere. So like, how did that? I mean, there's just a whole bunch of weird stuff like that. Also, there's never any vibration on these guys. Oh, there was one that was really funny. Let me see if I can find that one, because it was so funny. So they're still like, they haven't launched yet. And UF saw this, and I totally didn't see it. But so basically, they're sitting there. They haven't launched yet. But I guess the guys got confused over whether they're supposed to be in space, so they raised up their hands to make it look like they're floating. Like it's like time to fake the zero gravity. So one of the guys was faking zero gravity, and the other guy wasn't. Like he wasn't sure if we were in zero gravity mode yet or not. You know, maybe they didn't do these clips in order, so you can see him like, you know, like faking zero gravity. I'm like, dude, this is video you haven't launched yet. But, you know, who knows? Maybe they just took a bunch of video and they just cut it together and they grabbed that video. And that guy thought he was doing zero grav, but the other person didn't really see it. But UAP saw it. Oh, he saw it. He totally rips him a new one. So anyway, definitely go watch this video. I'm like, now I kind of really want to find that part where they do that. So it was really funny. And it's like so stupid. I mean, he makes fun of some other stuff that's, you know, is not the smoking gun, but some of the stuff he finds on here. And he's a little mean to this stuff, but he's not like swearing and cursing, and so I find him more relaxing to listen to than the swearing, cursing people. Is that the one? Oh yeah, I think that's the one. See, he's doing the zero gravity here. Yeah, see, this guy's doing the zero gravity, but they're not supposed to have launched yet. See, they're not launched. So I think whoever grabbed that clip just didn't really grab the right clip or whatever. So see his hands float up like, now he's going like that. Like, if you're waiting to launch, are you going to float your hands up off the armrests when you're on the ground? Would you, when you're waiting for anything, do you go like this with your hands, taking it off the armrest and going like that? No, you don't. Just happens to look just like zero gravity, except for you're still on the ground. So I don't know if somebody just cut and pasted the wrong clip. I mean, I could definitely see that happening. But yet, you know, how could they be so sloppy? I don't know. Are people in this timeline that stupid? Is it there for us to see that needs to see it? I don't know. So it's not technically Mandela, but it is for me in a way, just because this stuff just wasn't there before for me in the old timeline. A lot of this stuff just showed. So yeah, UAP covers like he just covers all kinds of fantastical stuff too, and he just has this dry humor. So I like to put him on when I'm working, but he does do a lot of images, so it's distracting because I have to keep looking at what he's talking about. Another thing about the videos, you can never see any single object, satellite, near or far. There's supposed to be thousands of them up there in low orbit. Yeah, that's true, huh? Every now and then the little bright light comes by and they say it's a space debris, but Tesla in space. Yeah, the car in space. There's no way that you know, it would hold up out there. And the tires inflated and everything. It could be nerves, not saying it is, but just... All right. If you're nervous, do you float your hands above your... I mean, what do you do when you're nervous? You clench them, you grab things, I have never once ever seen a person nervous float their hands up above their armrests as if they're floating away. I have never once seen that reaction. So I agree. I admit that there's like a 0.0001% chance that somebody may have a tick where they float their arms as if they're in space when they're not in space. But it seems highly unlikely. Okay, so that's UAP's channel. I think there was something else I wanted to say, but now I can't remember. Forgot. Derp, derp, derp. Not that one. Darn it, there was something I really wanted to say and I can't remember. All right, So another thing I wanted to cover is another channel I watch is Mr. MBB333. Somebody on here clued me in on to that guy. So it's MRMBB333 channel. And he just kind of covers weird anomalies. He doesn't really cover the Mandela, but he did cover an interesting one just recently. And it was just that a bunch of people reported into him that the sun was shining into windows that it had never shined into for them before. And he did pin it down that the sun was further north than, like, so say you live in a house for 20 years and suddenly the sun comes through a window and you've never seen it through that window, you're going to notice. Because, yeah, okay, the sun moves a little through the seasons, but, I mean, you live there for 20 years, you know that it can't go through that window. So the same thing actually happened to me. It started about 2 weeks ago. The barn I rent for work, and I've been there about 5 years now, and the sun came through this, the door, the way the slider is, light came through the crack along the side, and it made it look like the door was open like a bunch of inches. So I kept walking over there going, the door's not shut. Oh, it is shut. Because the sun was coming in through that crack, and it never did that before. It never was able to get the right angle to come through that crack. And I realized, I actually kind of, well, I wonder if there's a Mandela, but then I kind of was just busy. But basically, yes, if the sun is further north, that would be the right angle to get through that crack, is further north. So I just wanted to kind of put the me too on that one for Mr. MBB333. The sun seems to have made a foray further north in this timeline than a lot of people remember. Here's a question: is there light in space? NASA can't decide if they can see stars or anything. Yeah, I don't know. See, as a photographer, I do kind of understand that whole exposure thing. You can definitely lose vision of something. If you change the exposure, you could blot out the stars. So but then I don't know of it well enough to really know if it completely explains every instance of that happening. So I'm kind of like in that gray area there. But I mean, considering all the other fake stuff, you know, I mean, if it was just that by itself, which in my old timeline, that was like sort of the best evidence they had, and it wasn't enough for me because I'm not a photography expert where I could totally say, no, that wouldn't show if you had it exactly exposed for this, because I've had experienced those things. So that's not my favorite evidence, but toys magically appearing in the middle of the room out of nowhere, you don't have to be, you know, an expert at anything to realize that there's no explanation for that. So that's why I'm covering some of this craziness. People have said that for a bit now. Their shade gardens are in the sun all of a sudden. Well, for me, it's just been a couple weeks since it's been doing that particular thing. About 2 weeks ago, time's out with a shift. Not sure what you meant there. Awesome full moons during the day to the left or right of my house. Yeah, no moon in the day for me originally. But it's been a while. I think the moon is fading out, though, because when it first started really kicking in, showing up during the day, it was pretty bright. Now you can barely see it out there during the day. So it's like sort of disappearing, because you used to see it every night at the same time, right when the sun set, the moon came up. So then half the time it was only up during the day, or it was up from like 2 a.m. and I'm already asleep, so I wasn't seeing it that much. Because usually I would see it like right after dark when I'm coming home, sometime around then, you know. So then I would see it during the day, though. So, okay, I'd be driving and there it is. And I do remember seeing pretty full ones in the day when it first started happening. And then it started like kind of following the sun, and so you couldn't really see it, and it got faded out, so it's not very bright. It looks like it got small. So now you don't see it at night a lot of the time, and in the day you could barely see it. So it's like it's getting phased out. 3 eclipses in 1 lunar cycle this month. So what the how do they say the Earth's shadow is over the moon? Yeah, that's the eclipse now. See, that used to be every month for me. That was just what made the cycles. So that's why I have to keep reminding myself that that is the eclipse now. I saw daylight moon perhaps twice a year before. Yeah, for me it started out it would just show up near the sunset. So it would like show up a little earlier than normal on a few days. And that's how it started. And then pretty soon it was out in the middle of the day. I know it was a change when the buzzing sounds in my ears. You know, there's always buzzing in my ears, so I think I just blotted out. Lunar cycle is so different. It's always changing. I can't figure it out. Okay, so that's that one. All right, so this next one probably should have just, well, okay, I'll start with those. Well, no, I'll start with those. I can't decide. All right, let me start with, I should have left that YouTube on. So this one is from Work Dove is the commenter on the channel, and she's pointing out something from a channel called Quantum Entanglement channel on YouTube, which I did actually subscribe to. This guy's kind of interesting. He just does he's just done a few videos. I think he's from the UK. But he sees his own. I mean, there's not an extensive list of these, but these I believe are all ones he personally has. I've watched like 4 of them. So some of them are smaller ones, but they're ones he personally sees. He's not just getting from somebody else and doing videos. So this is the interesting one in question. So there's this thing called crinkle, crankle walls. Crinkle, crankle walls. So you people in UK, and it's in the Suffolk County area in East Anglia. I know where Suffolk County is, but I don't know where East Anglia is. But anyway, so crinkle, crankle walls. Have you ever heard of crinkle, crankle walls? I should just make it large so you can see. So that's the dude in question. You probably want to check it out, but he basically is just going, what? Where is the walls at? All right, I'm just going to do it. I swear he showed a bunch of images of them. Maybe they're at the end here. Nope. Somewhere in there, I swear there was a... Okay, so I'm going to... Crinkle, crankle. You are going to laugh if you don't know about these. Crankle walls. So, they're so cool. It's like Fantasyland. So, they're like these zigzaggy walls. Crinkle, crankle. So who would make a wall like that, right? You would think, right? Doesn't that sound stupid? But here's the story. Supposedly, these save on bricks. Because they're saying that if you make a wall with just 1 brick thickness and you don't put a lot of buttressing and stuff, it'll fall down. But if you can do it like this and make it wavy, you can do 1 brick thickness, and somehow, and I'm not an engineer, but supposedly this gives stability to the wall, that it won't fall over easily because it's wavy. So supposedly they've made, these are old walls from the past mostly, although this one looks like a new one here. Supposedly there's hundreds and hundreds of these walls, real old school ones like this one. All over the UK. There's a top-down view. And some of them go back like hundreds of years. Seems like they'd be more laborious, but... So they're totally cool. That one's interesting because it looks like it's some kind of bars and stuff. It doesn't look like it's bricks. I don't know why you would need to do that for... So that one looks really old. It's not even that orderly of a crinkle crankle. Check that one out. They buttressed it too. So supposedly these walls are stronger and more stable. There's one in progress. So yeah, cool. Can't really see that one, but that one looks more like it's scalloped. Anyway, yeah, good find, Mr. Quantum Entanglement. Two thumbs up. Okay. Go back, see what you have. I have to ask Ma and Scott. Yeah, see if they've ever heard of crinkle crankle walls. So, Alice in Wonderland. Yeah, they're cool. See, that's the thing, Shari. It supposedly isn't that much more expensive because you save on bricks. So the thing is, in this era, it would seem to me that the labor would be the majority of the cost. But maybe if you just have, slaves or something building it, like in the old times, then you would be saving on bricks. That would be your big expense. Plus, they're supposed to last way longer and be more stable. That's the story. So, if you really wanted a long-term wall, then it would make sense, supposedly. I have kind of trouble really imagining. I kind of could see it, but... I heard of this one just recently. Queen Victoria wrote Alice in Wonderland. I don't know who caught that one. But yeah, Queen Victoria wrote like some of these famous books now. And it was not Queen Victoria who wrote Alice in Wonderland. Queens don't, right? Yeah, I don't remember anybody. No queens, no, it's just wrong. It's just wrong. So wrong. All right. So, Bible stuff. Actually, I probably should cover this one first. Okay, so, this is an old Emmy that Moses has got horns in some of the art. So Da Vinci's art gives Moses horns. It seems like the story has expanded just a tad. Now, I do remember them saying that it was just the story was it was a mistranslation. But I had never heard the exact story of the mistranslation. So here it is. This is the story of the mistranslation. And it is so stupid sounding. Okay. So supposedly the reason that Moses has horns in a lot of these depictions is it all goes back to the ancient Hebrew, which, like a lot of ancient languages, didn't have quite enough words for all of the things the writers of the Bible wanted to talk about. Not like today when we have very good words, the best words everyone says. So I think we're joking about Trump right there. Specifically, it didn't have a word for a ray of light. So most biblical authors use the Hebrew word for horn because the shape of a ray of light is kind of sort of like the shape of a horn. Does that make any sense to you guys? Does a ray of light look like a horn? I just happen to have a horn here. Let me see if you can see it. All right, so it's big. I'm trying to wait. Does this look like a ray of light to you? Because like, if this was coming off your head, is that like a ray of light? I just can't imagine that if they didn't have a word. This is actually one of those blowing horns. They're kind of cool. They're kind of fun to blow into, but unfortunately, see, there's a little hole here. It scares the kudzu out of the cat. And the cat can't understand that I'm making the noise. So first I have to make sure he's not asleep because you don't want to startle him awake. And then I go outside and I blow it because if he's in the house, he'll get more scared. But if he'll run out and then he'll think that something outside is making this horn noise and he'll look for it. And I'll be like, no, I'm doing it. But he can't believe it's me. So he thinks like some kind of weird animal's attacking and he's looking for it. So yeah, that's kind of taken out of the fun out of the horn. But anyway, I digress. That does not look like a ray of light. I'm sorry. No. So, I mean, how limited is a language that in all of the language you can't find a single word that looks more like a ray of light? I mean, they had to have a word for light, right? So couldn't they call it a stick of light? They had to have a word for a little branch or a stick. I'm sure they had a word for like sword. I mean, rays of light are straight and horns are crooked. So why would they use horn? It makes no sense. I mean, I could think of like 10 words that look closer to a ray of light than a horn. So that's the story, is that they all used horn. That's just like the biggest load of bull. I found this out because a skeptic pointed out to me. It's like, oh, this is why. Oh, really? Did you really believe that? Moses' face is described as being horned. The writer of the 3rd century Septuagint, the ancient Greek translation, got the gist and rendered the word as glorified. But then Saint Jerome had to come along 700 years later and screw it up. All right, so supposedly he mistranslated because it says horn in the book, so it's not really a mistranslation because supposedly it really says horn. So when he read the word horn, he thought they meant horn, but really they meant something else besides horn. That's the supposed mistranslation. So then he translated it as having horns, so Moses had horns, and so everybody read it and went, oh, Moses has horns. So the storyline now is that Moses was usually depicted as having a couple horns so that people would know it was Moses. Because in the Bible, Moses was written to have horns. And so everybody expected to see Moses with horns. That's the story. So it goes a little beyond the mistranslation thing. So I kind of wanted to add that in because the skeptic excuse made me laugh. Like, who came up with that? Maybe they just meant he has freaking horns, because that would make more sense than this baloney mistranslation. I'm kind of like in a mood today, I guess. Okay, so I actually stumbled onto this at around the same time a couple days ago. So apparently it's in the Bible now, Psalm 75. Who says, I will cut off the horns of all the wicked, but the horns of the righteous will be lifted up. So here they're kind of exalting horns, like the horns of the righteous will be lifted, and I will cut off the horns of all the wicked. So now if you have horns, that's like good, but if you don't, it's because you're bad and you got them cut off. So if you just do like, what does horns mean in the Bible? So what do horns mean in the Bible? Horns, both literal and figurative, appear throughout the Bible. Oops. Somewhere it said like they mean like power and blah, blah, blah. What is the horn of salvation? Shoot, last time I asked this question, there was like a Google answered that means, Oh, yeah, it means like life, hope, and truth. So, like all this good stuff. So, I'm trying to think about it. I'm like, a lot of stuff that have long been taught by Christian schools, like, horns are bad because it's the devil. Was that stuff ever in the Bible? Because I'm pretty sure it's not in the Bible now, but I do wonder if that stuff was in the Bible at one time. Same with heaven and hell. Supposedly that stuff's not in there right now. But I mean, like, where did the Christians get all this from? I'm wondering if this is something that was in the Bible a long time ago. So again, horns, was it in the Bible that they were evil, or did the just Christians start saying it? Same with the wolf. But everything's getting reversed, so I think they're going to see more horns, basically. All right. So there's that one. This reminds me of the word unicorn in the Bible. It's a one-horned animal, aka the rhino, not a magic horse. People don't remember that word in there, and now it's in there. So whatever the excuse for it being in there, people don't remember it being in there. HBO took Gone with the Wind out of their program because it's racist. Yeah, I think people will chill down eventually on this. People have gotten so sensitive now. Like, was a couple years ago, they were going to rerun the Dukes of Hazzard. If Americans will probably know what that is. It's just basically these hillbilly redneck boys that drive around in this car, but the car has the that Confederate flag on it, like just the image of it. I don't recall anything overtly racist at all in there, other than the car has the Confederate flag on it, and they're just like good old boys. They're not like racist. They're the good guys. But I think just because that freaking Confederate flag was on there, they're like, oh, we can't rerun this show. So I don't know. I've never heard of a black person being pissed off about some stupid hick show that had the Confederate flag on it. I just don't know any that are that sensitive. I guess there's probably a few out there, but I mean, most black people I've known have been, they pick their battles. If you get upset about every little thing, you will be upset all day long. And that's not just black people, but, there's always something to be upset about if you're looking for it. Anyway, I think it's gone overboard a bit, but defunding the police, that's just crazy. On the face of it, certainly is, and I'm shocked, in a way that so many people would seriously consider that. But then I'm like, well, are they really saying completely get rid of the police, or are they saying take away some of that income? Because there's a lot of weird stuff in a lot of places. The police that if they pull you over and they take your stuff, their department gets to keep all that money. So there's been a lot of unfair confiscation of stuff, because there's some kind of law that was made that if money or items of any value are found that are suspicious and might have been obtained from the result of a crime, they can confiscate those. But they don't have to prove that there was a crime committed. So it's basically left to them to decide if they think that it's suspicious or not. So say you're going to go buy like a new flat screen, and you've got $3,000 in cash, and you get pulled over, and they'll ask if you have any cash or anything, and you honestly go, yeah, well, I have this $3,000, I'm going to go buy this flat screen. And what if he says, well, I don't think you're going to go buy a flat screen. I think that, you're going to go buy drugs. And you can't prove either way, right? So the police can take that money. He never has to prove that you did any crimes or had any intention of buying drugs. He can keep it. And in order to get that money back, you have to prove your innocence. And so somehow the courts allowed this because they were saying that the items were being charged with the crime and not the person, which is absolutely ridiculously stupid. So basically, they can shake you down and take all your stuff, and they'll just say it's suspicious. You have a suspicious pocket in your car. We're confiscating your car, and it's almost impossible to get this money back because even if they lose in court judgments, they still won't give it back. So if it's defunding, like putting them on a limited budget so they don't have grenade launchers and all this stuff, and I don't know, maybe there's like an opening volley of having less of a police state in certain timelines there. We're just having less police presence, getting pulled over less for stupid crap. I mean, like, you ever notice, like, police are always there giving tickets and stuff, but when you need a police officer for important stuff, it takes them like 45 minutes to show up. I mean, it just seems like I would like to see them concentrate more on actual serious crime. I got a speeding ticket some time ago, and I got a parking ticket some time ago. But the one time somebody was absolutely drunk and weaving all over the road, and then they drove right by police officers, and like they even drove into the middle of the so the light turned green, and then they drove into the middle of the intersection, and then they slammed on the brakes, and then they were weaving, and then there's no way the police didn't see them, but they didn't do anything. I don't know if they were just busy with something else, but they didn't give a crap. I don't know. It just seems like we could use some reorientation of priorities on the officers to be more, maybe if they were defunded a bit, they would concentrate on the serious crime more. That's one timeline anyway. Anyway, I don't think it's just coincidence that, I mean, on the face of it, it looks ridiculous. But something interesting things could come out of it. Definitely. Travel with a safe lockdown with cameras and never speak to unlawful officers. Yeah, never volunteer any information to any officers. Just don't say anything because they're not your friend. And if you have a bunch of money, some of them will confiscate it. And it doesn't matter if they have taken money from little old ladies driving to buy a car, a new car, and just all kinds of stuff. At least that's that's been documented. Just, totally obviously innocent people, because that money goes to their department. Or in some cases, like 60% of the money goes to their department, or a big chunk of it. And then guess who gets all the raises and who gets all the promotions in the department is the one that's bringing in a big load of money. So they bring in this money, their department keeps it. They buy big TVs, new cars, new radar. They get all the cool stuff, because they took your money, and they don't have to prove that it's illegal gotten gains. So when they pushed this through, they said it was to control like the gangs, right? But these little old ladies and stuff, business people, even they send documentation proving that it's legit money, and they still can't get their money back. So once the police have it, that's it. Yeah, it's just gotten like ridiculous. People are, and I've known a lot of black people, and I have never known any to be like upset about fried chicken. I mean, if you say something that is meant to be mean, then yes, they would be offended. But like, if you say something that's meant to be mean to them that is either a stereotype or not a stereotype, they're going to be offended, because nobody wants to have someone deliberately mean to them. But you could say blackboard and fried chicken as long as you were using them in legitimate sentences that weren't, demeaning or anything. There would be no problem. It's just gotten crazy now. I mean, you're like afraid to say anything, and that's not a solution, because when people are friends, they can talk to each other. When you're comfortable with people, then you're not gonna jump over every little thing. And that's where we have to get where we're, everybody just gets along. And it's not going to get along if you can't say like stupid stuff like fried chicken. It's not going to work. You cannot have a peaceful life when people are afraid to say fried chicken. And, again, I think it's just divide and conquer, by just stimulating the differences like that and just exacerbating them. It's not going to help. I don't think it's going to help to have white people feel guilty 24/7 for their whiteness any more than it's good to have black people feel bad for their blackness. Everybody has to be comfortable in their skin, and treat others with the respect they deserve as humans, and not make the skin thing a big thing. That's the direction we have to go through to actually settle down. So yeah, I think it's a divide and conquer thing. Black people mad at white people. White people are scared to even talk about black people. That is not solving anything. Okay, got that one. Crinkle, crankles. All right, I'll go that one now. Okay, so we've been kind of talking about the Last Supper. So apparently there's got a copy now because all the great art have like copies. So Tongariro Abbey has like a copy of the Last Supper, and it was done around the same time as the regular Last Supper. And you can see it's pretty close. And supposedly Da Vinci even did some of the work on this one. In its better shape, so you can kind of see more. Like, look, the back row windows are the same. These little panels are a little bit more easy to see. The shadows are kind of different. It's all dark over here and light over there. But the flooring and stuff, it's this, like, all the hand movements are the same. So yeah, there's two Last Suppers basically now. Let's see. Leonardo da Vinci painted his world famous The Last Supper between 1495 and 1498. His students subsequently made 3 copies of the mural. One of these ended up in Norbertine Abbey at Tongariro. Believed to have been produced by Andrea Solari in 1506-7. According to experts, the heads of Jesus and John were painted by Leonardo da Vinci himself, since there is no underlying sketch beneath the paint layer. All right, so this storyline will probably keep changing, but basically there's like a bunch more Last Suppers now. So I guess that helps us, because I was reading not too long ago, maybe like 6 months, a year ago, that they said they weren't sure how the Last Supper really looked because it was so degraded. Well, if there's like 3 exact copies in good shape, then you know how it looks, right? I mean, this is like nearly identical, the whole thing. So there's not that much mystery after all now, is there? Military will replace the police in the U.S. soon. That's why tens of thousands of military vehicles were sent in all directions during Corona. Yeah, I think we'll see some more stuff. I don't think we're done seeing a bunch of weird, crazy stuff, but we'll get through it and it'll sort out. I don't think we're going to end up in this like dystopian 1984 long term. Although be careful what you fixate on, because there might be that timeline out there. I mean, I don't think we've completely separated from the negative timelines. So you might be quite possible to still get on crappy timelines. But I definitely think we'll see some stuff and we'll get through it. We're still being played by the controllers. They're trying to start a race war. Yep, divide and conquer. I saw this really great image and I tried to find it again, but it was basically like this redneck dude with a big old rifle and this like black dude that look a little bit like ghetto, and then they were like I don't know, they were walking together in like buds, and then it said at the top like deep state's worst nightmare. Basically, if the rednecks get along with those ghetto dudes, that's like it's like really powerful. That's what we really have to get. We got to stop letting them divide us. Those are the fighters from two different groups. That the strength that would be there. That I think that's what we have to go for. We gotta get along with the fellow man. Don't let him divide us. And that goes Republican, Democrat, mask, no mask, black, white, whatever divisions they're pushing lately. Don't fall for it. That's part of the game. And I think that's also part of the trap for going to the negative timelines. You start hating people over stupid crap, fearing and hating, wanting to, not caring about them. Those are all the dark forces. You don't want to go that route. And like I see a lot, excuses for doing those things. Well, she was, she's probably just a deep state operative, so it's okay to punch her in the face. Or, that guy is, a conservative and he said bad stuff last week, so we can just attack him and beat his head in. No. It doesn't work like that. Violence still breeds violence. And somebody's not punching you and it's not self-defense. It's not justified. It is just not. Even if you hate that guy, no, it's not justified. There was an article on Gulf News yesterday showing how flying is now. The airports and planes look like a hospital. They check you for everything before you get in and after you get out. Okay, I'll have to check because, like, that dude, Brian Staveley, has been flying around, and he went a couple weeks ago, and they didn't do anything. It was totally normal. So, unless they've implemented some new stuff since then. And I think he just flew somewhere, just recently, but I haven't watched the video. So maybe if anybody of you watching what he's been up to, because he kind of talks about that stuff. Unless it's abuse towards children. Well, I mean, like, if there's abuse towards children, you take the appropriate action. The appropriate action is to protect the child. But pouncing on a guy and beating his head in is still not the appropriate action. It's still violence, and you're still, like, poisoning your own soul. It's not necessarily necessary to do that in order to stop the abuse of the child. And also, all that violence in front of the child is just going to scar the child. So it's just not a necessary activity. So why do that? It kind of reminds me of dog training. In dog training, they always say you do the minimal amount of force to obtain what you're trying to obtain. So, like if you tell your dog to sit and it'll sit, then you never like smack them because, you would just, well, actually, that's kind of a bad example because you don't want to smack your dog anyway, but you don't want to go overboard. It's useless. You just do the minimal. And so in a situation like that, I would say the same. It's sort of weird when I think about this. I've been thinking about this a long time. There are so many TV shows that, or movies, where they try to come up with this scenario like, well, now is it okay to torture the evil criminal? Because torture might be the only way we'd get the truth out of him, to discover where he has buried this, the hero of the universe under 20 feet of earth, and he's only got 3 hours to live because his oxygen's running out. And so now can we torture him so that we can get that information out of him? I mean, it's like the most unrealistic thing. I have never heard of it happening in the case of ever, that there was ever such a situation as that, that they knew all these things and they knew this time limit. It's like we're looking for an excuse to do bad things, because why would this same plot line come up over and over and over again? It's like you wanted, it's just weird. You think about it, how many plot lines are like that? I would just like to comment on the remarkable facial and skull sculpting on the channel's front page. Fantastic example of current anatomy. Oh, on the thumbnail. Yeah, we're going to get to that. That is actually, do you recognize that guy on the thumbnail? Because technically you probably should, but I doubt you will. Sometimes violence is necessary to change. Like when? I'm trying to think when violence really ever accomplished anything that couldn't be accomplished any other way. Like you can definitely have the protests without the violence. I don't see anything that the violence has accomplished that the protests would not have accomplished just by mass hordes of people being there. I can't see anything. I think it's, I'm trying to think of one time when violence really accomplished anything, and the only time I could really say that would be self-defense. We must choose evil for it to work right. Exactly. Don't look for an excuse to be evil. Don't look for an excuse to be violent, to hate. Try not to look for an excuse to fear. I know that one is insidious. You have to choose the other route, especially for violence. I don't know why humans, and I've definitely fallen for this one a million times, urge to be violent. It's insidious. Video games, that kind of thing. My race is the human one. Yep. I don't even know how it became a thing, because it seemed to me like it really is more cultural anyways. I mean, if you take a black-skinned person and raise him in a white house, then he acts like a white person or like the rest of the people in the house. And if you take a white-skinned person and put him in a black house, he's going to grow up in that culture. It's cultural, and he'll act like all those other dudes. So it's not skin color that does it. It's a culture. That's why even saying it's a skin color, it would make more sense if you said poor or such and such culture. I don't really get along. Like, you know, if there's a culture that says women have to stay home and clean the house, that's not the culture for me, because that's not my deal, you know. But it really doesn't have anything to do with what you look like. It's the culture you grow up in. Just fixating on the skin color, it never really made sense to me. All right, where are we? I mean, not that I'm saying I'm going to hate this and that culture, because that's not what I mean. But, I mean, just thinking about melanin production as a dividing decision-making process makes no sense, because different black people grow up all different environments, and they have all different personalities, and they have all different cultures. So they're not like this one group. You can, at least with the culture, you kind of have a similarities there. Skin color doesn't really determine much of anything. I mean, there's certain genetic illnesses maybe, but even then they're rare enough that you really can't make any guesses. Okay, so this one's kind of a small one, but I think we're going to see more of it. I covered before that I don't remember fish having tongues. But they've been around for a few years now. So apparently some fish have teeth on their tongue now. So like spotted bass, there's a tooth patch on the tongue. A tooth patch on the tongue. Let me see if I can find a photo. I think I should do images. Unfortunately, there was one that had kind of a circle that showed it, and it's pretty small right now, but so apparently there is like this little area on the tongue of certain fish, and white bass have it, perch, and some trout have it, and it's called hyoid teeth. So if you remember the hyoid bone, in humans there's that horseshoe-shaped bone that's in the neck that is changing through the shifts. And so fish apparently now have that bone. At some point they got that bone. And I think they were saying the hyoid bone is, like, for us it's buried in the neck, but on the fish it's like further closer to the mouth, near the tongue. And they're saying that those are hyoid teeth. I think it's kind of a new one because the position of the hyoid bone changes with the movement of the tongue in the pharyngeal airway. If I remember correctly, I looked up hyoid teeth wiki and there was like nothing or close to nothing. Yeah, see, there's not even hyoid teeth in a wiki yet. You'd think that there was there's multiple fish, including trout, that have these hyoid teeth, but there's no wiki for them. It seems highly unlikely. I think that this is a new one. The images barely showed them. They just kind of like circle an area, but you couldn't really tell what the teeth look like. What nobody did. All these fish have these teeth on their tongue, and nobody took a photo of them. So I think this is like hot off the presses with these fish tongue teeth. Couldn't figure out like what they're made out of. You know, nothing. Even though trout have them. So anyways, just kind of like an advancement on that particular ME. Speaking of the race riots, I could have totally missed this one, I guess, but apparently this exact same thing with some poor black dude getting choked to death and dying and saying, "I can't breathe," happened a couple years ago, and it was this Eric Garner dude. So this one, it was actually kind of, yeah, it was pretty bad too. So they basically tackled this dude. There's a little bit more of a rationale in that this was a big dude that could fling around a lot of cops. So you could see the cops kind of piling on for a reason, because you're not going to take down this big dude when you're just like ordinary sized people. But the rest of the story is less reasonable, because basically he, you know, says he can't breathe and stuff, and then I don't want to play too much of it. And they tackle him, and then he says he can't breathe, and then he stops moving, and they don't make sure he's alive, and then he ends up dying. So it's kind of like the same thing. And he was he was on his way to buy cigarettes, apparently, and the Floyd thing was supposedly him also buying cigarettes, but passing a fake money. And so this one was kind of found by a user on Retcon called Will Work for Answers. She comes up with some good stuff fairly often. What was weird is I just don't remember this happening. Now, supposedly the person who filmed this recently started having problems with the police, and that person is claiming the police are harassing him. Now, weirdly, I remember that story, that some guy who photographed an incident in the past. I heard that a few months ago, that guy, but I didn't remember the story it came from. So it's like identical. And I don't understand why we're talking about the Floyd thing like 500 times a day in the news, but nobody's mentioning Eric Garner. I mean, like, I've seen quite a number of newscasts, and nobody said, and this just happened to get the same, you know, a couple years ago, and nothing has changed. And, you know, that's not really part of the storyline at all. So I'm a little suspicious on how much this was in the timeline before, because it doesn't make sense that we're not going again. So part of what brought this up is that there's like some music videos and stuff that have supposedly all this stuff from this event, like I can't breathe and police and all these weird symbologies, and it was supposed to be from this incident. And it's like happened like 2 years before the current incident. So we were looking at that going, oh my gosh, that's just like such predictive programming. It has all the exact same sentences that's happening right now. And then we find out it's from this Eric Garner one. So I don't know. I'm not sure on that one. I do think whatever you want to say, whether it was there or not, it's really weird that we're not talking about this one more along with the Floyd death because they're like almost identical. You know, black dudes getting ciggies, get pounced on by the police and choked to death. And this guy did not have the big C cooties either, so there's not going to be any excuse mongering about why he died. And this also parallels with an Mandela I covered a while back where I said I don't remember these arteries on the side of the neck. I just remember the arteries inside the neck. So with these arteries on the side here, that's what allows these new chokeholds, is that they put pressure on the blood that goes straight to the brain. And I've never been choked out with one of these. You're not really supposed to say you can't breathe because they're choking out your blood to your brain. You're just supposed to pass out. But anyways, if they put pressure in the right spot now, you'll pass out and you could die because it's cutting off blood flow to your brain. I don't remember those arteries being there in that location on the side. So that was a Mandela I covered a while ago, which allows this stuff to happen much more easily because even if they're not cutting off your airways, you can pass out and die. See, they have the I can't breathe. He said the same thing, I can't breathe, and then died. Please do more hurt and damage in the crime they're supposed to enforce 90% of the time. It's ridiculous. The perp is not even the person half the time. Yeah, I'm trying to think back. I'm like, I don't know. It's like most of the interactions with police just aren't that positive. They're giving you tickets. I mean, if somebody's really speeding, yeah, but it's not as bad in California because if you go a little over the limit, they don't really go after you. But here's an example. When I was a kid, I was riding my bicycle on the sidewalk. I think it was 14. And I rode my bicycle on the sidewalk on busy streets because I didn't want to get run over by a car, which can definitely happen. People just don't watch. If I had to get somewhere, I'd ride my bicycle. And if it was just residential streets, I would ride in the street. I don't really like riding on the sidewalk, but I don't want to get run over. So I'm riding on the sidewalk, and a police stopped me, and I got this ticket and this summons because it was illegal to ride your bicycle on the sidewalk. I was 14. So there's my first issue with the police. No warning or nothing. I get in trouble for not killing myself by driving in the road because they didn't have a bicycle lane or anything there, and you had to drive around cars and stuff on your bicycle. So then I had to go to traffic school as a 14-year-old. So the school was so far that I couldn't even ride my bicycle, so I had to get my mother to drive me there. And then they showed us videos of people drunk drivers because like 99% of the people there were drunk drivers, and they're like, what are you doing here? And so they had all these images of people getting crushed in cars because they drunk drove, and blood was splattered, all in their guts were all over the road. It was like totally gruesome. And the most ironic part is the whole reason I was driving on the sidewalk is because I didn't want that to happen to me. Okay, so there's my first run in with the police, and it was just stupid, and so I do think that we could really be looking at some of these laws and trying to make them a little bit more appropriate with the enforcement and the laws. There's just like more laws every 5 minutes. And ignorance is not an excuse for us to disobey the law, but the police get that excuse all the time. Oh, I didn't know. Oh, it's okay then. I mean, shouldn't they know the laws? If we have to know the laws, how come they don't have to? There's a lot of unfair issues that way that definitely need to be looked at. So I don't know, I mean, one's tempted to say if they defund the police, then all hell will break loose, but I guess it just depends on how the timeline spins it. All right, so what was up with that? All right. I've covered before the Paracas skulls, like the head binding and all that, and how it spread all over the place. So it's still spreading. And we now have these Native Americans, which is the word I think you're supposed to use, but they're called the Flathead Indians. I'm using the word that they used on the internet. The Flathead Indians. Now, I do remember the storyline where they were saying that if, in some Native American cultures, the babies got kind of flat heads from being in the cradle board. So it's basically like a cradle board that they would, like a cradle that's made out of wood that they would put the baby in, and they could carry him around in this thing. But now the storyline is not just their head got flat from being smoshed against the back of this board, but they actually specifically added this additional board that's squashed on their head so their head would get flat. So here's an illustration of it. Now this is the new part, okay? This one showed up quite some time ago, but now we've got this head smashing device that is put on these babies on purpose to smoosh their heads. So there's an example of supposedly the look. When I actually look at these people, they don't look that weird shaped of a heads. But so the story is that they wanted to look unique and identify themselves as looking different than other natives. There's one. And this group also did a lot of tattoos. Now, I've also covered before that I think there's just a lot more tattoos in the current timeline. I don't remember Native Americans doing tattoos. So these are a pretty wide-ranging group. It's not just one, it wasn't just one tribe that did this. It was a whole bunch of tribes all along the west coast, along like above California, up into Alaska, all along the coast there. There was a huge, big old bunch of them. So that's one. Now, okay, maybe you didn't know, but I'm really suspicious. I don't remember any cranial deformation for Native Americans at all. But even weirder, apparently now they're starting to infiltrate that story into the Egyptian storyline. And they're saying King Tut probably, possibly, maybe had head binding. Tut head. So they supposedly took his skull that they have, his bones from, and they made a bust or something of, you know how they put this flesh on and so that it looks like a living person, and this is what they came up with. So if you look at this, it definitely looks like the head binding style that where they wrap a bunch of like cloth or wire around the head and smoosh the back. It really looks like it. They are saying that it doesn't really match any known like congenital defects, and it looks just like, and here's another apparently a originally done replica of him. So it's kind of convenient, isn't it? There's a nice side view. It's kind of convenient, isn't it, that a lot of the Egyptian rulers had those giant goofy hats, so you can't really see the head shape. So that was supposed to be like royalty. So now we have somebody who looks like they've had head binding in the Egyptians. Now, another thing that's been popping up now is, where's that word? Prognathism. I have so many new words I have to learn all the time now because the timeline. Prognathism. I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but it's Prognathism. So the storyline that's starting to pop up, I haven't found a lot of proof of it, but the storyline is now that if you head bind the skull, the way the body develops is it tends to push out the nose and like the snout area. So you kind of have a long nose and kind of a pushed out center, and then your chin is like a weak chin, so it pushes out the center, and they're saying that's called prognathism. So you get this look. So what's interesting about this look, though, is that it is somewhat reminiscent of what I'm seeing the current look for Anunnaki. I guess those are those like weird Bible creature things where they have this kind of big nose, and that seems to be a look that's developing in the timeline. So for Anunnaki, you got that dome head and then this pushed out nose and stuff. So I don't know where that's going. I'm going to keep an eye on it. So they're saying that there's only a few sites really saying it, but if you look at that, let's pull up some regular head binding. All right, so let's look at some known head binds. So that's kind of the look you get. So you look at his and it's close. This one looks like it's more extreme, but that's definitely the look you get. All right, that one looks a little more like him. So there's starting to be articles where they're saying, now I don't remember his head being all mutant like that, first of all. They did say that maybe he had like Marfan syndrome, and he had kind of like, it was like lanky and long, like Marfan, and that was the last I heard. I don't remember anything about the head itself, like the cranium itself being like weird like that. And I've kind of looked into that before. So I really think this is fairly new. And from what I'm seeing with the head binding going everywhere, and it used to just be the head binding around here, but now we've got these ones where they're smashing the head in here, and then we're going to get all these shapes because they're squishing the head like freaking putty. Here's a Native American one. So not just the Flathead Indians, but other Indians did other head bindings, like the original one. There's all kinds of it now. Here's another one. So again, it's getting close. I think we're going to see more on this one with the. So they're saying that him and probably Nefertiti and like his whole family probably all had the head binding, or you could say that it was their natural. You know, there's no proof that the head binding was there, but there's this weird shape. So they're saying that all the family had that. Nefertiti, Akhenaten, and Tut all had this. All right, so let's see what you guys are up to. Please see everybody as a criminal when they interact with everyone they have contact with. Yeah, I've really noticed that. It's just like they're just looking for, you know, you don't want to see them because they grill you like you're guilty already. Yeah, just like, I don't want to see this cop because he's going to look for crimes. You know, even if you didn't do anything, you're like, you know, maybe I have like a busted tail light or something, you know, it's just like, oh yeah, I'm going to talk a bit about some new, fissures for me. They were the cranial fissures, but now they're the cranial sutures. I'm sticking with fissures. I hope I never forget. But it was cranial fissures was what they were once called. Wasn't his head more elongated? Not for me. He had a normal head, but he had kind of a long face, but not beyond what would be normal. It, you know, if you know 300 people, one guy's going to have a real long face. That would be the look. Not like, ew, you're an alien kind of a look. It's like, oh, that guy's really long and skinny. They were trying to emulate some beings with actual elongated skulls. Those weren't head binded, but had actual larger skull capacity. Yeah, see, I've covered the Paracas skulls. If you look at the Paracas, it does look like the cranial capacity is a lot larger. So So the current storyline is that the Paracas skulls are just head binded. But if you look at them, they're ridiculously bigger than any of these living humans. And I've covered before that these bumps are getting ridiculous here. I don't remember those on the original Paracas. Okay, so there's your typical head bind. This one could fit. But then like these ones, no freaking way. That and that, there's like, that head's like twice as big as that. And these, like these bigger ones, they're too freaking big. So here's another thing that's been showing up is some of these funny little cavernous dents in some of the Paracas. So some of them have these funky bumps, and some have got these cavernous dents. Those are both new for me. The heads themselves are getting bigger. I don't remember them being that big as far as cranial capacity, obvious cranial capacity. I mean, look at that. That is quite a bit different than the actual head bind humans that are being presented. I don't know, maybe that's just part of the timeline. Oh, the scientists say this, but oh, maybe it's really that. Except for the current timeline, it's like the scientists say such and such sounds really stupid because right in front of your face, you can see that it's wrong. So that's the timeline now, that the official storyline is often asinine. Okay, so I did spot some new cranial stuff while I was hunting on this one. This was one of those nights where everything I clicked on was another ME, and wait, and then this, and this, and this, and I finally had to just go home. I feel like I could have stayed all night looking for MEs. Well, let's just call them, okay. There's two things I discovered. Some new holes. Foramen. And they call those holes in the head. So remember, originally the people were looking at those holes up here, and there was holes over here. Oh wait, there's some holes down there. But now we got some holes back here. You got some holes in your head in the back now. Tell me that doesn't look weird. They're not all that big, but that's pretty freaky. So these are supposed to be here, and then like arteries go through, but not everybody has them. But then I was looking like, well, how many people have them? And I couldn't find much information. But one group of people that I think it was some kind of natives, they found that 70% had at least one of these holes. And I did learn another thing is that they're saying that, so here's the holes in this skull. Let's see if I can make it bigger. All right, so there's the two holes. Doink. Ah, nice, it worked. And so also, the spot where the holes go, now they say that the cranial fissures, now called sutures, will straighten out right there. So it's all zig, 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 and then it goes straight, and then zig, zig, zig. So where the two holes go, there's this straight part. And that's the current storyline. All right, so sometimes the holes are really big. As you can see, those are big holes. It's another example. This one's weird because what's up with these little dents? I don't know if I can make this any bigger. I don't think so. Nope. Try to expand it this way. What's up with these dents? That was weird. I'm just seeing so many weird things in the skull shapes. Here's another one with dents. What's these dents? They're starting to show up now, these funky dents in the back of the skull. So this is the back of the skull. So even on this one, you can see how the fissure straightens out right where the holes are. I don't think that one shows it. Interestingly, oh, that one does it. Parietal foramen. For emissary vein. Emissary vein. Oh, actually, I've just figured that out. All these words were thrown around. I was trying to figure out. So it's for the emissary vein. What is the emissary vein? Emissary vein. Emissary vein. The emissary veins connect the extracranial venous system with the intracranial venous sinuses. They connect the veins outside the cranium to the venous sinuses inside the cranium. They drain from the scalp through the skull into the larger meningeal veins and dural venous sinuses. So, what's a meningeal veins? So stuff, it seems like this is kind of a breach of the blood-brain border then. If you've got blood from the outside draining into the meningeal veins, are small sinuses that accompany the meningeal arteries and drain the dura mater. At the inferior margin, the meningeal veins drain into the larger dural sinuses, while at the superior margin, they drain into the venous lacunae. See, I think that's in the brain then. So then this outer stuff is draining inside. So it seems like the blood-brain border is less of a thing here. Venous lacunae, a lateral pouch or diverticulum of the superior sagittal sinus of the brain into which protrude arachnoid villi that return cerebrospinal fluid to the venous circulation. Have to keep an eye on that. It doesn't look like it's quite going inside the brain yet. That one I'll have to trace down, but it does kind of sound like there's less division of where the fluids could go. Okay, so emissary vein, kind of an interesting word choice. I've seen images where there's one hole or two holes or even 3 or 4 holes in here. So you can have apparently extra emissary veins. So draining, I guess it's for draining. Kind of weird. Emissary. I don't know the way they chose that word. It's interesting. Okay, so you got a couple, you probably have a couple holes in the back of your head. Oh, here's one of the ones that had extras. See, there's one like there, there, and there. Parietal emissary foramina. Ooh, this helps. Emissary veins. Okay, it doesn't look like it goes into the brain yet. These are the emissary veins. Okay, so there's one more. I think I'm almost done. Very close. Got that. There's one more brain bone I found. Yep, one more thing. Suddenly, ancient astronaut theory doesn't seem so far-fetched. Yeah, that's exactly. A bunch of the totally whack-doodle sounding stuff is just becoming more and more likely. That's why I'm not really writing anything off anymore, because I mean that ancient astronauts were like, that's the dumbest show, and but no, the evidence is all showing up to back it now. First the show, then the evidence. It's kind of bass backwards there, but flat Earth, ancient aliens, Anunnaki. There's all this evidence is showing up for all this stuff. Okay, so the last one. So emissary vein sounds cool, but wormian bones sounds kind of creepy. What's a wormian bone? So apparently, let me add this. About 40% of people, they say, approximately, have wormian bones. So basically, here were these fissures slash sutures of the brain. People can get like extra little bits of plates of bone separated by fissures. Inca bone, aka pre-interparietal bone. So are they saying that Incas had that? Interesting. Multiple wormian bones. Okay, so I think the wormians have to be in the lambdoid suture. I did not have a lambdoid suture in my old timeline. So, uh, lambdoid, interesting choice. Lambdoid. So these are all wormian bones. These are all separate little tiny plates of bone that the fissures, I guess, went all bananas and didn't and made extra chunks in here. And this is actually the first I've heard of this pre-interparietal bone. I was looking at the actually I was too lazy to write them all down, but there's a whole bunch of these. That one wasn't on there when I first looked, but okay, so now they're calling this one a wormian bone, was before these were wormians. Here's an interparietal. There's the lambdoid. Okay, so this is bone. This one's a little bit shifted. So interesting. So, anyways, about 40% of people supposedly have these. There's a couple there. There's like a bunch here. There's like 10 of them. Wormians. So what are we going to have? I'm wondering if we're just going to end up with a bunch of little plates instead of one giant chunk. Maybe really flexible. Because one thing that's different is, I've covered this before, I remember these being called fissures. They were basically where the bone locked together and then it grew solid. So you needed to have some expansion room as a baby because your head was going to grow. And then once your head stopped growing, these expansion areas, these expansion joints would just grow in. But now they're calling them sutures, and the sutures have a tiny amount of give, so they're still a little flexible. So I don't know if we're going to, since everything tends to be an improvement on these anatomy ones, I'm guessing that maybe we'll just have more of like a flexible series of bones in there instead of one giant one. I mean, look at the variation now on these things. There's another one. So I could totally see we getting more and more of these in the back. I would not be surprised. Osteogenesis imperfecta. So I don't know this one, but it's imperfect creation of bone is the translation of that. Latin, I believe it is. Wormian bones again. So there's the x-rays. You can see those are their own little separate plates. So yeah, weird. I tried to find wormians on the original skulls. I didn't find a lot. Okay, but this one does show some. Looks like there's some in here and some right here. So yeah, that's about it I have. Let's see what you guys are up to here. Explains all the pain I've had in my head this week. I mean, like the top of my head has been kind of sore the last few days. Not really bad. It's kind of like a headache, but it's not really poundy. So it's irritating, but it's not like that. It's not like pressure. It's actually kind of weird for a headache because it's not really pressure. When enforcing, an officer will speak to make you incriminate yourself by creating guilt game playing. It's a word manipulation. Yeah, don't. It's sad because it's the nicer folk that get caught by this game, and the not very smart folk that they trust the police and try to make them happy or whatever. And then maybe they'll say something that slightly conflicts with something else because they're nervous, and now all of a sudden they're guilty. And then yeah, just don't volunteer any information. So, the other thing I've been trying to figure out is, what's up with all the mask wearing? I mean, like, I guess a month ago, the WHO said that there's no evidence that mask wearing helps. I don't remember that coming out a month ago. I heard about it a week ago. So I'm pretty surprised it was a whole month ago. I've covered this before. I think that there is evidence in the old research. It's not really strong evidence, so you could say that it's not enough evidence. There is evidence. So when the WHO says there's no evidence, that is not really what I saw, unless all that research has changed. There's some. It's just not. I could definitely see someone arguing that it's not strong enough, but there is some. So when they say there's none, that's not really true. But if the WHO is saying there's no evidence that masks do anything, then why are we being pushed to wear them all the time, and it being, it's obviously ridiculous, the extent that they're going through to push these. What is the deal about the masks? And I kind of thought about it as I was in the grocery store because I have to wear one. And what I was wondering is that when you wear a mask, you're kind of hiding. So maybe it'll bring out your nature a little bit more. So nobody can really see your face. You're more anonymous. I'm wondering if it's just another like bait for people to just act as they want, as their inner nature is. Maybe it's just, I don't know if that's all of it, but I wonder if that's part of it. So just conveniently now you have all these people wearing masks, and then you have the riots, and so you have Antifa, and you can't tell who these people are, but conveniently they have an excuse to wear a mask over their whole face now. So, I mean, if you looked a year ago and people came to a protest all covered up and anonymous, you'd immediately go, well, those are evil people. Why are they hiding their face? But now it's allowed, right? So there's that. It makes crime easier. People have an excuse to hide their face, but it also would tempt people, I think, that have bad tendencies, would tempt them to do more bad things. So I think it might be another thing that kind of has the potential to bring out the worst in people. Isn't that where Musk is going to plug us in like the Matrix? Yeah, see, Musk, he's kind of interesting because when the COVID thing was coming through, he was, kind of on like playing the game like he was with the conspiracy theorists. Like, oh, this is bull crap, and this is unfair, stomping on my rights, and all this stuff that, a lot of the conspiracy theorists were saying. So, but then, he's the same guy who wants to like implant a chip in your brain and make you like transhumanist, and he's pushing all that. So, I mean, just be careful who you assume. Just because they're on your side today doesn't mean they're on your side for reals. So just be careful with that. That's all. And that goes for the political spectrum too. Just because they say they're on your side doesn't mean they're really on your side. We don't know these people. Trump, Biden, any of these people, we don't know them. That their whole persona could be an act. Like Trump, he was an actor, for Christ's sake. We don't know who he really is. And all the politicians are actors, but Trump was literally an actor. And so was Reagan. Who are they behind closed doors? We have no idea. There's no way to know. They might be exactly the same behind closed doors, or they might be a whole different person. All of the political people. That's why I don't really understand why people put so much faith in these people. I'm like, you didn't grow up with them. You don't know what kind of person they are. You only know the act that they show. North Pole is just sea now. Last I checked, it was semi-permanent ice that would melt and then freeze over and melt. So It doesn't show the ice on the maps, but there is supposed to be still ice up there. Of course, the old maps always showed the ice because there was a continent under it, but cover your mouth when they steal your rights. Yeah, exactly. What do masks do? Create a perfect environment for this respiratory bioweapon. Yeah, there's definitely some concern that if you wear a mask all day, it could be a breeding ground. I really don't think that's the main crux of it. I mean, if they wanted you to be sick, they could just spray something in the air. They wouldn't have to go through all that finagling. I think there has to be more to it than that. They could put stuff in the water. They could put stuff in the food. There's a million ways they could easily infect you that they wouldn't have to like weasel you into wearing a mask. And symbolism, yeah, I've definitely covered that before, especially the cloth masks that they're pushing. A lot of them push on your mouth and muffle. So when I speak, when I have one of those on, my mouth, my voice is muffled. It leaves an excuse for having kind of an unusual voice. You are less likely to talk because it's more of an effort with that, kind of silence. So definitely, I think that too. I think that's part of it. It can definitely be more than one thing. Muzzle, yeah, there's a symbolic and a psychological effect that it has. I take the mask down when I talk to people in shop. Well, I only have to wear it when I'm in the grocery store. And I don't always talk, but I've been going in there real late, and nobody else goes in there late anymore. It used to be they'd be fairly busy, but they're mostly just stocking by the time I get in there, like, putting stuff on the shelves kind. And so I have been talking more, ironically, because they've got nobody else in line that they've got to run and help. So it's actually kind of an interesting thing. Lately, I've been talking to them more. It used to be like they always seemed like they were in a hurry to get some stuff done, but lately we're like, yep, 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 yep. That actually, now that I think about that, why aren't they skittering over to do these giant list of? I mean, I used to work retail. I know how it is. You've got this giant list of things you're supposed to do before closing, and if you're done with the basic work, you don't usually stand around and chit chat. But lately, they have been. That's kind of interesting. The other thing we have to consider is, these people might be just puppets too. I mean, just because a politician acts a certain way doesn't mean that that's really him. So, I mean, it just might be part of his shtick. It's hard to say. I'm actually really curious about it. I mean, do these people really exist as humans like we do? Are they like part of the matrix and just on the screen? If they're people, what are they really like? Are they really like what they look like? Maybe some are, some aren't, but who controls the Q movement is too convenient and keeps us on the sidelines, not involved, but as cheerleaders and fans. I thought a lot about that, and I used to just write it off as silliness. I don't think that, physically we can't do anything. I mean, what are you going to do? All the laws are in place. You have to wear the mask. I guess you could just not wear it and risk getting in trouble, but I don't think that's going to do anything. But I actually don't think that we have to do anything to make change. I think it comes from up here. I don't think they can force you to become evil, and I think that they're trying to encourage you to do it. Other forces, I think, are trying to encourage you to be a better person, so you've got these like dueling banjos all the time. But I suspect what change comes from is our own hearts and minds down in here. So I don't think you have to do an exterior thing. I actually now think that what you see in the exterior is a result, is an effect of what's in here. So people want to go out and attack the world out there, fix it, work on it, do this and that. But I actually think that the way that changes is from what comes in here. And that's the Buddhist way too, is they always push you self-improve first. And then when your energy is very clean, then when just going out into the world affects everybody around you and the world. But they don't go out and make like a big, like we're going to go fix the world. You know, it doesn't work like that. And I now don't, I think I agree that it doesn't work like that. So if we want the politicians to be better, we have to become better people. I think the politicians are basically a manifestation of our own dark side. So work on your dark side, work on your negative attitudes, hate, on all those negative things, try to move to the opposite direction. I mean, we're not perfect, so we're going to have imperfect concepts, and you don't want to try to totally block those, but you know, look into them, look at the sources of them, face them head on. Kitty wants in. Hold on, I'm going to get the kitty. Kitty, where are you? This way? Oh yeah, kitty. Oh, he's all feisty. There's the kitty. You gonna be patient, kitty? I think he wants his dinner, and the dinner is at the other place. Put your face on the screen, kitty. There. What a good kitty. He's being kind of patient. The more tired he is, the better kitty he is. He's like a little sweetie when he's tired. He's like an angel. You are an angel when you're tired. You want to go? But when he's energetic, he's like a little devil. All right. And I totally forgot what I was saying. So yeah, anyways, I do think that that's how we solve things. I think we have to work on our inner side. And it's dangerous, I think, when you try to go out and fix things using anger, hatred, judgment, ego, pride, those things. I think those actually might make it worse. You're trying to fix a problem operating directly on an effect. The real problem, I think, is in here. And not just each one of us, but everybody. So I think you can have the most effects by fixing what's in here. That's my personal theory. I mean, that's not to say if you're out and about and somebody falls down, you don't go and help them out and help stand up and make sure they're okay and those things, But I think that's where you have the most influence, is directly inside the mind. And I think that's why there's putting it so much effort to try to convince us of things. I mean, like, this one is like quantum of conscious always says that. Why do they put so much effort into trying to brainwash us? If we're powerless creatures, they could just force us physically to do whatever they wanted. But I don't think they really can. I think we have a power that we don't realize. And so just like any devil or evil influence, they try to convince your mind of things. They try to encourage you to be aggressive, show you things that'll make you angry. Try to make you like, I'm gonna punch that guy. That person is evil and deserves to, die, and those kind of emotions. I think that's why we see that all the time, because that's what they're trying to turn your mind in that direction. So don't fall for it. Keep your humanity. I can't imagine living without my cat. Yeah, this one's pretty young right now, so I could have some long time with this one, but that's the main thing, is they don't survive forever. Do they not want individuals or intellectuals? They want hive mind or to control the masses. I do think that, sheeples, see, if you're a sheep and you just go along, then they can just tell you what to think, and you just think it. So, these people are evil and deserve to die. Oh, okay, those people are evil and deserve to die. If you're a sheeple, it's easier to turn your mind that way. However, if you're a sheeple but really good inside, you may still resist a lot of that. Like, oh, well, I don't know. Maybe we could just talk to them. So there's still, it's not 100% if you're a really good person, even if you're kind of a sheeple. they may not be able to grab you, but I think the more you're a sheeple, the easier it is for them to try to brainwash you. So it pays to be stubborn, I think, as long as you're not stubborn in bad stuff. But somebody was it was will work for answers from Redcon was talking about Bozrah, I think it's called Bozrah. I should probably Bozrah. Yeah, Bozrah. This is this weird thing in the Bible that some people who are, heavily into the Bible think that we may actually be. They're trying to read the Bible and figure out what is going on with us. These are Mandela Effect people. So they know that, we're in a different part of the galaxy and everything's weird and this isn't really the Earth we know. So how does this jive with the Bible? So a number of them have looked through the Bible and found the story of Bozrah. Hopefully I'm saying it right. Bozrah. So there's this story that just before the end times, or like around those times, a group of like the kind of better quality peoples will be taken off the earth so they won't have to deal with the tribulations, and they'll be put in this place called Bozrah, and it's supposed to be a sheepfold or enclosure. And I kept reading this sheepfold. I'm like, sheepfold. So this story has kind of developed because I've heard of this 3 years ago, and it seems like it's more sophisticated. When I look into it 3 years ago, it didn't say much except for that you would be put in Bozrah until like the tribulations were like kind of over, and then God would go get you. But now they're saying like there's a whole bunch more spiel to it, and they're saying that you'll be tested and you'll learn lessons and like that, and you'll also be in the hands of like the negative people for this process. But so why would God deliver us into like the hands of negative people? It must be for lessons, and it also must mean that those people can't really hurt us, because I mean, if they're the enemy and God delivers us and they could really hurt us, wouldn't we all just be killed instantly? But that didn't happen. So in the end, after a certain amount of time, God is supposed to collect us, like break us out of the Bozrah place. So this is an interesting kind of a story to just check into. Christian Bozrah of the end times. One of the reasons I'm mentioning it is because it talks about I don't remember it being called the sheepfold like 3 years ago when I heard of it, but now they keep calling it the sheepfold. So it sounds like sheeples, like, we're put here and we're supposed to be sheeples, or it's attempting to make us into sheeples. I don't really think it's good to be sheep, but kind of in the Bible, you kind of get the feeling like you're this innocent sheep. But, I mean, and being nice and gentle is fine, but being, a blind, obedient sheep, I don't think that that's really what we're supposed to be doing. So anyway, we get busted out of the sheepfold, supposedly. Now, there's no word on if you can fail the lessons and get stuck in the sheepfold, which is, I find interesting. I'm wondering if that's going to show in here or not. Sheepfold. So the terminology is interesting, though. So keep an eye on this Bozrah thing. What, kitty? He's mad because there's no food down, but the food's at the other house. You have to go to the other house. So anyway, yeah, that was just something I was thinking about for Bozrah. Musk's 7 sons is an Emmy for me. 1 died. Seems symbolic somehow. Son. The last one has 12 in his name. All the world's a weird stage. I think all the public figures are NPCs. Quite possibly. I do think Biden's like a whole new, different dude than I remember. His whole personality is different. Bill Gates' personality is totally different than I remember. Trump's personality has been quite consistent. I have to say that. Although he's a little bit like less, he makes a little less sense now, but he's been pretty consistent. They are goats, we are sheep. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. What does the wolf represent as a change? See, like technically, there's not a huge difference between a wolf and a lion. They both are like predators. So that would just be symbolic for the Bible people, obviously. The Bible people always thought that the wolf in sheep's clothing, that kind of thing was a negative. Sheep are very sensitive and easily frightened. Interesting. And a lot of times they're frightened over nothing, or some tiny little thing that you certainly shouldn't waste your time being frightened over. And they go in herds and flocks. So maybe you can't get out until you stop being a sheep. Maybe that's what it is. I don't know. I'm going to keep an eye. I got my ideas, obviously, but I don't think there's a smoking gun. So I'm kind of just like brainstorming. Keep an eye on the story. I'm wondering if we'll get more hints about what we should be doing. See if we can manifest some clues in that Basra story. Wolf works in packs and most powerful and effectiveness compounded when running with its pack. Yeah, but then lions also hunt in packs. They're a little slower, but they're more powerful. Biden is glitching all the time. Yeah, I think, my old Biden was pretty vivacious. He was sharp on, every now and then he'd say something a little stupid, but he didn't look like a blithering idiot. So I don't know who this Biden is. Just a totally different dude. I don't see how he's going to win anything because he's just like, Aw. The old Biden could have won, but this one, All right, so I think it's time for me to shove off. It's 2:30. The cat is mad. One's out. So thank y'all for coming. Appreciate it. Think good thoughts, everyone. This is Eva signing off for Once Upon a Timeline.